probably saw the seeds, who probably saw the seeds 3 months ago, 6 months ago, so as to have fruits in times to come. Probably crops are the same. We work it out to the best possible extent in terms of sowing those seeds for the future. It might seem just yesterday, but it's almost 10 years when we met at COP21, popularly known as the Paris Agreement. Among the biggest consensus that was achieved with respect to indices, with respect to reporting mechanism, with respect to how world would move forward in times to come. COP29 gave us similar feelers. We had some successes, there were some deliberations, and there are some pointers which need deeper introspection. Friends, welcome to this webinar that speaks on reflections from the COP, from the people who were attending, who were present, who were country representatives or present there in different capacities. Let's learn from them how they see this and what are the outcomes, what are the things that you and me can do in terms of moving ahead, in terms of finding the rightful path. To begin, I humbly request Mr. Aditya Pundir, Director for India and South Asia for the Climate Reality Project, to kindly welcome all our speakers and share how he sees with respect to COP29's outcome and what does it mean for his kind of organization which is working for Global South, which unfortunately is at the receiving end of things. Welcome, Aditya, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Bhavesh. A very warm welcome to all the participants today who have joined for this concluding session of our, Youth for COP, the first session as we are having for the, so it was really great having this session. And today we have a session, we have some incredible speakers. I have my other co-branches speakers here also today, which is a great thing to have. And of course, we have some of our top climate leaders who have really shown us a leadership throughout this COP as well as in the past. So thank you very much, everyone, today to be here and to be part of this concluding session. Well, Youth for COP, when we started, the whole idea was how can we train the young people in the Global South in understanding this very complex process of COP. And this has been a big need. And I'm so happy to share that the feedback which we have received and what the people have talked about, they are very happy. The people who participated in this journey of literally 6 months with us have really been happy. We have collected good feedback. And I would also request more people to give their feedback so that we really want to make it a more strong process in the coming year. Now, coming to the COP29 and the challenges, well, COP29, we all know, I think we have experts out here who were there and who participated and contributed. They'll be giving a lot of details, but I will only say that, yes, as our chairman Al Gore says, that it was a disappointment. What we went asking for, what we wanted, especially for Global South, we did not get. And when we are talking about in trillions, the finance, and you don't even get paltry 300 billion you get, which is nothing, I think, and that too by 2035. So it doesn't make sense. So I don't know how it's going to come and the nature of debt, like, is it be debt, whether it will be grants, which we were looking for from public organizations. So there are a lot of loose ends. So I will not get into details because a lot of good speakers are here who will be talking about it. But what I would like to tell this audience here is, the young audience here is that, you see, COP is not only about climate change, it's also about politics. So you must understand and try to read through politics also as and when you are trying to understand the COP negotiating process. Because we are talking about developed countries, we're talking about developing countries. It has implications of the West. It has implication of the rising BRICS, which has become a huge thing. You must have heard the statement of Trump that he will put 100% taxes if BRIC comes out with a currency. So, so you see, so it's a lot of politics which is also going into this because the world is totally realigning. I think 2024 was a landmark year. A lot of fault lines changed globally. And now we have a war in Syria, we have war in Middle East, we have war in Ukraine happening all the time. So we are in a place where politics is changing, alignments are changing, and this all has a huge implication on the COP process. That's what I would like to, my thoughts to leave with you, that COP is not something in isolation. It is a combination of what the political forces are trying to achieve. Because if we leave it to scientists, the problem would have been solved probably 20 years back. After the Kyoto Protocol, they understood they would have solved the problem. But no, nothing has happened, as you know. Emissions are still increasing. Instead of going down by 7% per year to literally 45% reduction by 2030. So where are we? So this is a question which we have to understand, try to rationalize, critically analyze. So all the young participants who are here today, and I will really welcome you. Please join the journey next year also. We will be coming out with a much more robust edition next year with much more inputs we collected this year about what should be given, what should be done, and with many more speakers to enlighten you. And it's a program open to all the youth in South Asia. You're welcome. And we have some incredible partners. So those partners are there and they will be strengthening the process. We are all taking it together with cancer. So with that, I welcome you once again. And definitely the path is clear, the path is strong. And Bhaveshi, back to you.
Thank you so very much, Aditya sir, on those reflections. Indeed, collaborations and future priorities are something we ought to look forward to. And beyond COPs is something that we need to focus with respect to moving ahead. With this, I welcome Rituraj sir to the platform. Sir, I know you are currently at the COP trying to work out how different pillars can join hands with each other. Please share with us what are your reflections from the COP and the COP that you are presently attending also. Understand you are representing one of the last men standing in terms of tribals, in terms of indigenous, in terms of people who are most vulnerable but otherwise closest to the nature. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Bhavesh. I hope I'm audible. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I am coming to you from Riyadh, from the UNCC, the COP16. And really, there is stark contrast to the COP, the climate COPs that we have been attending, and the real focus of this COP here, which is totally focused on land and water and food security and, desertification, the main agenda here. Uh, and the most stark, contrast, I would say, is the importance given to civil society. 2 days back was a civil society day, CSO day, and on almost the entire day was devoted to programs to engage with CSOs, and the CSOs, what they had to say is part of the official document. So, this kind of engagement we, probably don't see at the level. And today's People's Day, as I feel like all indigenous people or local communities are directly consulting with the president. The entire day is devoted to that. Coming back to Baku, I think, yeah, all of us found it very, very disappointing. There were little wins, but I'm not going to dwell on that because most of my COP learnings about the negotiations when I was there has always been from Nakul, and I'm seeing he's here for the. He used to brief us in the morning, and he is the best person to analyze what happened, what not, in minutely. And then we also have we have our GG for talking about the fossil fuel proliferation treaty as well. Uh, but I think you know. I always am positive going forward. Things can only get better, and that's all I have to say. Uh, One of the gains I would say was that the methane, reducing methane from organic waste declaration, and maybe the Article 6 operational just some small wins, but definitely uh, in the global north, my friend Aurora is here. I'm waiting to hear her opinion as well, and from the global north perspective. But I do empathize that the wars haven't been easy, and there has been a lot of real world, real political problems as well. So I will just end here, and I'm looking forward to listening to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rajji. And we look forward to have some positive news as an outcome coming from Riyadh. Thank you so much. Harjit sir, you are a person whom I have been on a personal basis following ever since my childhood. I know you have working on the ground and one among the most vocal voices as far as climate change communication, action, and associated inaction is concerned. Sir, please enlighten our audience in terms of your reflections from the core and what is the way out from here. Over to you, Harjit sir.
Thank you very much, Bhavesh, and Climate Reality and Cancer and other partners for having me. Um it's a pleasure to join and always useful to get a chance to interact with young people who have been engaged in this process and following. And we also really acknowledge the momentum that we have seen in the last few years because of the push by young people, and they have been able to put um, a huge pressure on developed countries in particular, but also holding their own respective governments to account, which is absolutely needed. Coming to COP29, I must also mention I've just returned from Manila after the fourth board meeting of Loss and Damage Fund. So I'm going to try and connect those two dots. So in fact, I've just arrived after 30 hours of travel, and I'm in Kolkata right now for another meeting. So and it's useful to look at the outcomes of these processes, to put things into perspective on how we actually look at the multilateral system overall. As Rituraj said, um, we cannot just look at COP in terms of what happened there, but the larger geopolitics that's around us, upon us, and especially when Trump is going to take power in the US. And of course, around the world, when we see the right wing government taking a lot more space and power, I think that is really concerning. And especially when they are not supporting the climate action the way it is required to, and rather going backwards. And we see a lot of backtracking in developed countries when it comes to fossil fuel extraction, or where they are rather expanding than winding down and investing much more in renewable energy. So I just wanted to mention those words so that we are not limiting our focus at the COP. Of course, we have come out of this COP with a lot of frustration, and as civil society, we have rejected the outcome. And we have used very strong words, and not just for the sake of it, we have called it a betrayal because the outcome is woefully inadequate. So when India took the floor as soon as the decision was gavelled through, uh, it raises questions not only in terms of the substance of COP29 decision, but also the process that was adopted, which is really concerning. And that's why I was connecting back to the overall multilateral system that we are dealing with right now, which ideally should have gotten much more strengthened over the last few years as we face many intertwined global crises, be it climate crisis, biodiversity crisis, inequality in general. Look at the mass extinction that we are facing because of the development model that we have created, energy crisis, food crisis, what and what not. So, and we cannot solve these problems just by acting in our own countries. We need global cooperation and support to deal with many of these crises. But here we are returning from COP29. And to me, and as I said in many of my deliberations and media interviews, to me, that was the most important COP after the Paris Agreement, because the implementation of Paris Agreement hinges on finance. And the reason we have not seen progress, particularly in developing countries, is because they have not got sufficient support from developed countries, be it moving away from fossil fuels and adopting renewable energy, or preparing for climate impacts. And now they are in a situation where they're already facing these disasters with very little capacity and resources to recover. And before they recover, they are hit by another one, as we live in 1.3-degree warmer world, and we know we are looking at way beyond this temperature threshold. So really something that we are highlighting, that the trust in the system has been eroded, which means that we need a lot more work to restore that trust, because we cannot say, as I said earlier, that we're going to go back and do things ourselves. We cannot. You know, whether we like this process or not. And of course, some of us who have been following these negotiations for more than 15 years, we feel a lot more frustration. And many of the young people keep coming to me and say, how do you, how do you continue follow when this process is not delivering? Because there is no other space where we can actually say that all countries are equal. Theoretically, of course, we know the power play that happens. So we have to fix it. And we have to also create new processes and new frameworks to make sure that overall multilateral system delivers. So that's the overall context. And I'm sure Nakul and others are going to talk about the finance part, but uh, the demand that came from developed countries, as we all know, was $1.3 trillion. In fact, as civil society, we were demanding at least $5 trillion. If you actually look at the calculation, if you read the NDC synthesis report or the mitigation gap report or the adaptation gap report, you realize that we need trillions of dollars annually, because the costing that has been done as part of NDC synthesis is less than half of the actions that developing countries have provided. And I always mention that the just transition related costing has not been there. And it's because we are talking in a little more Indian context. Within our country, let's understand, Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh are going to be losers as we move away from fossil fuels. And Gujarat and Tamil Nadu are going to be winners. Can we actually afford winners and losers when we talk about climate action? We need to talk about economic diversification. We need to talk about reskilling of people. That's not mitigation. That's just transition. And nobody has actually costed the cost of just transition. So when we look at these numbers, which NDC synthesis report provides, really we are nowhere near what is needed. And that's why we say we need 5 trillion. And what we got is $300 billion, which we know is absolutely not enough. And the sad reality is it's not even a step up from $100 billion. And I'm sure you must have seen the reports. You take inflation into account since it was announced in 2009. You look at the way it has been framed, that all actors are going to provide money, and the way it's going to count the contribution that goes to the multilateral development banks. And that was also India's objection, paragraph 8C, where India's contribution to World Bank and others is now going to be counted unless India opts out. So if you look at the calculation, we will be able to see money flowing. How much is real? There's about 260, $70 billion, which means rich countries barely have to step up. And the cost of inaction is extremely high. Many reports that were released before the COP also made that very clear. Yet developed countries have not shown that goodwill to actually come forward when they are responsible for majority of the historical emissions, even if they continue to blame China, India, and other large economies. So I think what we saw happening, and especially when developed countries could not even or did not deliberately provide their own number until the very last day, in the afternoon of that last day, that shows that they were negotiating in bad faith. And that is an important part. Of course, we got some outcome and some language, but the big questions are money for adaptation is not going to be enough. Loss and damage has not been plugged in, and there's no additional money. And if we consider loss and damage as part of it, which theoretically it's not, it's going to eat into adaptation and mitigation. So that is something which is very concerning. And in fact, I wrote a thread, and my call is that we should actually junk the deal, because if we accept it, we are stuck with it for the next 11 years, which means that when we talk about 2030 targets or beyond, or 2035, we're just going to be doomed. We really do not have sufficient support to go for it. Although the language does talk about working on $1.3 trillion, a roadmap, which probably to me is also a hook. If we can really fight back and make sure that we are able to get something at the Belém COP, COP30, we will be able to salvage that situation. So I'm particularly, I'm sorry, I don't have any good news. So I am really concerned the way, as I said, it was crafted, and what we saw out of it. And if I can spend a minute, and Bhavish, I can always come back and respond to questions. From the loss and damage conversation, I must tell you, on day 3 of that board meeting, talks were about to collapse. Because rich countries again started playing the divide and conquer role. Again, they wanted to reinterpret the agreement that we got, that the loss and damages fund is going to be for all developing countries and not limiting to least developed countries and small island states, which of course we should prioritize because they are most vulnerable. But then you also have countries like Nigeria and Indonesia and Pakistan's and India's of the world who are more vulnerable. So how, a lot more vulnerable than we think they are, because they are large economies. So Finally, we got the deal. Of course, the scale remains a challenge. The speed of providing money and scaling that up remains a challenge, and even access is something that we are looking at. But overall, I would say that we need to really fix the overall system, and that's why my association with the fossil fuel treaty, we are also quite clear that the Paris Agreement or the UNFCCC process cannot deliver a comprehensive agreement on fossil fuels because of all the reasons that as I mentioned, just transition, finance, and many other aspects. So let me stop here, and I'm happy to come back and answer questions.
Thank you so much, sir. We totally echo your sentiments with that much travel and the kind of outcome that has been received. Sorry, it's being reflected in your conversation also. We need to introspect on those lines. And yes, from audience side, questions are welcome. You can put that across in the Q&A in bar. Our speakers would be happy to respond to them. With this, we move to Miss Aurora. Ma'am, you have been part of these closed door meetings as far as the very finance and other aspects of global negotiations, global north and global south conversations are concerned. You have been in those rooms for the last 10 years. Please enlighten our audience. What's your viewpoint and how do you see what has overall happened as far as COP29 is concerned? Ms. Odino, for you.
Yes, thank you everyone. Thank you, Bhavesh, for the introduction, and also thank you to Climate Reality and the other partners for organizing this session. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today. So yeah, as you mentioned, I follow the climate finance topic, but also I've been quite engaged on youth involvement and engagement. So I was very happy to hear about the first intervention about Youth for COP. So I will try to share some reflections on both topics. Well, regarding finance, I think the previous speakers already highlighted the disappointment from the civil society point of view. I think what we know, well, just to give the background for everyone, we know that we had this finance goal of 100 billion per year that was established in 2009. That where countries agreed to mobilize 100 million US dollars from developed country to developing country. This year, we had to provide an updated finance goal. And as mentioned before, we were talking civil society and the real needs are trillions. But in the end, what we managed to achieve was only to triple the previous goal. So the agreement was of 300 billions per year and not trillions. So as civil society, which is the side where I stood the most, this has been a big disappointment, but also disappointment related to the modalities, as the final outcome doesn't really contain specific guidelines or specific indication of how this amount would be disbursed. So the problem with the previous goal first was that for years it was not achieved, firstly, and secondly also of the modality, as of course we need more grants and we need less, we need to really reduce the debt that finance modality have caused over the years. So I think overall, as a person, I don't like to say global north, global south. We are all the same in this planet. But I think my feelings overall, I think we didn't have really, high, or personally didn't have very high expectation from this COP. And considering also the situation with the US, with the election, I think what I could sense, it was overall a disappointment related, to the political system and also in relation to the outcomes. Like the expectations were not so high. So considering that, I think having at least something is not what we wanted, but it's something, and it's something where we can start upon regarding the climate finance. Because if we had nothing, I'm thinking, okay, then maybe countries would have not put any money for 1 year, or maybe for more until the next discussion, and this would have been very, very bad. Another thing that I want to discuss, well, there are a few things that I would like to mention, but I think something we should keep in the radar is also the new NDCs, the National Determined Contributions. So these are the commitments the countries have to submit to the Secretariat. The deadline is February 2025. And these National Determined Contributions, the documents where country tells, okay, this is what we will do to achieve the Paris Agreement. So I think as civil society, it's very important to keep an eye on what are these national determined contributions including, and talking about youth and engagement and involvement and empowerment, I think it's important to keep an eye on the inclusion of the topic of education. So how do we make sure that the next generation of leaders, but also everyone on our planet is actually aware of the topic and of how we can solve it. Related to another comment related to the COP process itself, this was already touched by the previous speaker, but yes, I think what I heard also, and my feeling is that we need to start questioning this process. Of course, yes, it's a process where more than 190 countries comes together. It's maybe the only one where this happened, but in the end we see it's very political. In the end, is the presidency who established the agenda, is the presidency who in the end approves the final outcomes. We saw it with the climate finance goal. There were countries which were very disappointed, and India was one of them. So I'm really started to questioning, okay, how can we improve this? Is this really a successful process? Well, it's not, because if it was, then everyone should really be treated equally. So I think the question also for the next COP will be how can we improve this process itself? And also the second point is how can we connect this climate conference to the other UN United Nations conferences. So this year we have the biodiversity, we had the biodiversity COP16, there is now the COP on desertification. So I think at COP16, in the biodiversity COP, there is it was mentioned to try to connect more the topics with climate. But I've seen this less and less at the climate COP. So this year there was this initiative launched by the presidency to try to make more connections between the three UN climate, biodiversity, and desertification conferences. But yeah, then in practice, I think biodiversity or nature, which in the end is what we are trying to protect, is not mentioned enough as a cross-cutting topic. Last thing I wanted to discuss was, as I mentioned, about youth. So over the last few years, I've acted as a focal point or youth climate delegate for Italy. So I've been following closely the process of youth participation. And to give a very brief background, last year there was a big step was done in terms of youth participation in climate negotiations, because the final outcome had clear language on the inclusion of on the introduction of the youth climate champion, which is a person nominated by the presidency, supported by a team that should be really acting as a focal point between the civil society, the youth constituency, so Yango, and the presidency. This was a huge step last year. And also, I think also because last year we had, there was a great team supporting the youth discussion with the COP28 presidency. And this resulted indeed in the inclusion of this youth climate champion in the final outcome. In terms of progress this year, we don't have much updates related to the process of youth participation. We had, yes, a youth climate champion, Leila Azanova, and she was supported by a team. I'm just my concern is that as we go to the next COP, I think we need to make sure that this person, that the youth climate champion team, really engage with the civil society and with the youth, and really uses his or her power to really make sure the youth demands are included in the final documents. Yes, I'm from Italy, I'm from Europe. I think maybe something interesting or that should be mentioned is that we have, so Europe, we had elections this year, and the president of the European Commission was confirmed, Ursula von der Leyen, and she just nominated the new commissioners. They act as ministers, let's say. And this year there is there is a news. There is a commissioner for intergenerational fairness. So in terms of youth empowerment, this is something important to keep an eye on, and also maybe to seek for collaboration also outside Europe. Indeed, in the first mandate of the new commissioner, each commissioner has to organize youth dialogues on relevant topics. So I think also this is a good step forward. We will see how it goes, especially because we need also at European level. Europe was one of, it's always been ambitious with the new Green Deal and pushing for net zero emission by 2050. Now with the new commission, I think as civil society, we're a bit worried because climate, yes, it's one of the topic, but it doesn't seem to be as the number one priority as it was on the previous mandate. So because of this, we really need to continue to push forward. Thank you. I took probably more than 10 minutes, but thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing the other speakers.
Indeed. Thank you so much, ma'am. And I'm happy to share that many of the people who are in the audience are very learned, respected teachers and professors who are probably interacting with 1,000 more students in times to come. The kind of insights that you have provided will for sure look forward to interact with you more and more. Our people would be happy to interact with you on how to engage youth on these meaningful dialogues. Thank you so very much. And with this, we move further to Mr. Nakul Sharma. Sir, you are part of CANSA, an anchor organization working with different stakeholders in terms of bringing their voices to the floor. At the same time, the very consensus amongst the organizations is something that you have experienced, and now it's at the country level, at the CSO level, at different organizations speaking to each other. How do you see that? What's your reflection from COP? And one question I'll be asking at a later stage.
Thank you, Bhaveshji, and thank you and warm greetings to all the fellow speakers and all the participants. It's always a pleasure to talk to such young audience and answer their queries and questions. It's always a delight to also partner with Climate Reality on having a series of conversation. I will just start, but I'd like to apologize first that I have to switch off my video because my Wi-Fi is not behaving properly and I am using mobile data just to make sure that the audio quality is better. Uh, but yeah, I think quickly, coming on to the subject, I think uh, um, previous speakers, Aurora, Harjeet sir, and Ritu Raj sir, all have spoken and put the right emphasis on what has really happened in at COP29. I'll not take too much time into the nitty-gritties of negotiations, the NCQG, the global goal on adaptation. We of course know, I mean, most of the things, the major agenda items were really stuck on the fact whether the NCQG delivers or not. And we, of course, after more than 2 weeks of COP29 outcomes, we have, of course, realized, and we are realizing it day by day again. The more we read the COP29 outcome, we, of course, understand the nitty-gritties of, what it has really come out with and how bad it is. So I just wanted to start and say that it's not only India or some of the global southern countries. I think across global south, all countries are unhappy about the COP29 outcome on climate finance. Of course, the degree of dissatisfaction varies from bad to worse. And it depends on, I mean, as you said, that COP negotiations is largely about politics. It's not about science. It is the politics, the wider geopolitics that dictates the degree of dissatisfaction and the protest that countries have came up with. Of course, India being vocal, it can afford to be vocal. But if you look behind the statements of small island states, LDCs, of course, this deal was pushed through, gavelled through by presidency, but nobody is happy with the way things have been done, and how the processes have been curtailed and side deals have been made. But I think we are in a period that we need to find out solutions. But before we come to solutions, I think we also need to understand that uh, solutions need to come to reality when we understand the next context. So I'll give you a bit of next context and then we'll come to solutions. I think where we are now and while we are speaking, we should also realize that expectations for the next COP30 in Belém, are already being framed. If you read through the op-eds, articles, largely from global northern media, if you hear the think tanks and the narrative being set out there, the expectation from COP30 is already being set, and the larger narrative is that, given the difficult geopolitical circumstances, COVID and then conflict, and the Trump presidency, this is the best that global North could offer. And we now need to work together on the issues of common threat and in line with science, which is 1.5 degree aligned. So I think just to unpack this, I think we really need to understand what they really mean to say. From our understanding is that they're saying that within the CBDR, they are very happy and very selective to uphold the common part, but they have done all efforts to dump the differentiation. We, of course, are very happy to hold both common and differentiated, part equally together. But without the differentiation part, it is very, very difficult for us in global southern economies without having the right means of implementation. And Harjeet sir, you mentioned very rightly, I mean, what we asked, it's nowhere near. And the biggest, threat in NCQG is that it's not only about 1.3 billion or the amount of quantity, it's the quality of finance. It's disastrous, to use the right words, because it transfers not only transfers the responsibility, historical responsibility, it puts the onus back on all of the countries together through multilateral development banks and private sector. We of course know private sector will not be able to cater the demand on adaptation finance. So I think just to I mentioned all of these difficult factual things that has happened through this outcome to just build the context and make us understand how bad we how bad this deal is, and what should be our strategies, what are the positive things that we can take forward. Of course, as the previous speaker Arora also mentioned, that it is not the COP thing, it is also the wider multilateral spectrum that we have to start using from now onwards. Not only the UNFCCC process, but the G20, the G7, and the counterbalance to G space is the BRICS space, BRICS plus space. You of course know the reactions of the Trump, without being getting into the chair, which he will definitely on January 20 is threatening BRICS plus with sanctions on currency and so many things. So of course we need to cautiously start using all of the multilateral space. We need to first come up with a mindset where we should frame a global southern agenda that delivers on issues related to not only finance but mitigation as well. And that means that we need to have serious political discussions through civil society, and civil society and youth groups should facilitate that, which could make sure that the cost of finance, which is largely a G20 agenda, is reduced. Because if the cost of finance is reduced and it's conducive to global south, we don't have to be at the end of the day, we nobody wants in global south to be asking global north for grants or financial support. Of course it's written in UNFCCC COP, but we would want ourselves, we would want a financial system that delivers or prepares the grounds so that we could earn the right amount of money that we deserve to make the low carbon transition. And having said that, and having put the right focus on multilateralism, on setting the agenda, a common global southern agenda, uh, how can we make sure we can get the ball rolling? There are some indicators within the COP process. Not every process is completely bad process, but it also come with its own question marks. So apart from the overall political game within the COP, there are I think 14 or 15, and I'm coming to the solutions part, presidency initiatives that were launched. And one of the speakers also referred to the reducing methane from organic waste. There are other presidency initiatives related to health initiatives, initiatives related to how cities and human settlements could be make more conducive and low carbon in the times to come. Initiative related to grids and grid storage and green energy infrastructure. Now, we also need to understand that these are presidency-led initiatives, and similar initiatives were also launched in COP28, tripling the renewables, doubling energy efficiency, initiative related to agroecology, and uh, uh, all of these initiatives cumulatively, brings us to the fact that we are in a world where politics is one thing, but subnational action is very important. Subnational and sectoral action is very, very important, and that's where I want to highlight the role of youth. Of course, we are not only the most populous country. I mean, I'm giving example of my country, India. We are the most young country in the world as well. And we have the power of artificial intelligence, machine learnings, data science. Youth should go to the ground in data collection, in data efficiency, in data monitoring, in areas and sectors, all of these agriculture, urbanization, which we have just mentioned, energy storage, and find out real solutions that can really uphold the subnational part of our action. We of course know domestically in India, of course, everybody is applauding India's stance, and we completely support India's stance. But when we go one level deeper within subnational actions, we of course know we have our own fractures that we need to fix. And this relates to how we can maintain ecological integrity, how we can maintain our agriculture, how we can maintain our forest, how we can maintain our land. So all of these things needs to be done, and it cannot be done with youth support. It cannot be done with the use of technology, and it cannot be done with the use of right tools. And subnational is where implementation will happen. It will happen at state level, it will happen at district level, it will happen at gram panchayat level, village level. And then we will be, truly the leaders. We have taken a political call. We are leaders at COP29, which was very welcome. But when we become true leaders by, having implementing all of these sectoral, tasks and targets, we truly becomes global leaders. And then we'll be, also guide global southern countries that this is how you implement low carbon actions, and not, you know, uh, feel yourself fixed into the agenda set by global north. We of course need to break down the agenda politically and in implementation ways as well. So I'll
Okay.
summarize for the time being, and hand it over back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nakul sir. In fact, need of the hour is to go national, subnational, and on the ground in terms of implementation, showcasing and showing as to what has been done, what can be replicated further as well. With this, I move to my dear colleague Tasnia Ahmed, who has been an on-ground worker, supporter, a flag bearer for the coastal communities, for again people who are standing at the last as far as our kind of nations, our kind of people are concerned. Tasnia, you have been a volunteer, you have been active voice in the last 7 to 8 years. Please share what's your learning and reflection for the from the COP in a very quick fashion, please. We are running short of time.
Yeah. Uh, Thank you, Vabesh. I think, of course, I'm going to be very short because I think the previous speakers has been covered so many topics, like how climate financing is covering the fossil fuels, and the climate financing also covering the power shifting process, the just transition process, agriculture, political influences, and political coverage as well. But I would like to cover like three portions covering that how COP is not only leverage to the not only their in regular topics, but rather than their own federalism things. As we all know that climate justice is not only limited to the climate change, because climate change is not a future threat, rather than it's a present reality. And in a short, if I really want to go for some key points that how we are going to cover on the climate, this year we have covered the climate and gender topics. We have covered climate and health. I mean, focusing on that how we are going to balance on the climate issues, not only in the financing issues, but also in the other coverage, like how we are gonna working on that. I would like to cover one of the point that has been Naresh ji has been covered in his speech about young people must be in the field for data collection, data monitoring. I would like to just add one point that young people not only in the grassroots, rather than young people can also include in the power shifting process, especially in the decision making table, because there are so many spaces still been there where young people are not egoistic things. I would like to share one of the experiences we have been covered in this COI 20. I mean COI, there are so many places, especially as we know koi is mostly organized by the young people to come up with the young thoughts in different levels, especially from the national to region, so it will get covered in the other things. But when it times to the for the UNFCCC has been covered on the koi things, there are so many reflections, negative reflections was been there. So it's not only in the in the main UNFCCC, rather than it has been also reflected in the youth group, that how they are working on those points. So it has been also tricking out that triggering our how things has been covered, especially not only in the paperwork, rather than also in the organizing the events and things as well. So there are so many clashes, there is so many setbacks there. We can also talk about, especially with the UNFCCC, that how we are gonna work on that. Especially this is a team right now working on the reflections of the pivotal way, that not only in making it the desperate things, rather than also cover up in other issues as well. Secondly, about the gender things, as we all know that the time is now ongoing of 16 days of activism. So if we really want to go for in that angle, gender is a really very vital issues. We all know that there is a space for climate and gender, but there is a question that how many gender parity or gender, I mean, the participation is being there in the decision making process, or even in the UNFCCC leadership process. There are so many things has been covered up that there are people, there is a line of row of people, there is like uh 88 people was there in the whole process, and there is only 2 women was there in the gender, but still there are so many other participations of the gender has been missing on that point, and still there are only 2 women was there to share their point of views. But even we can also share that there is no many things has been covered up in these things. So this, still there is a gap that how we can cover up the gender issues, not only in the paperwork rather than in the implementation level as well, because we are always talking about to increase the gender topics, but there is no any things like out in the things. So if you just go over the climate watch article, we all know that one of the very key point that Lima work program, especially on gender, has been launched and also extended for up to 2034. Even the next COP30 is going to focus on the new approach, especially the gender framework approach is going to be introduced or launched in the next COP30. But still there is a point how we are going to work on these gender issues, because as my experience, I'm working with the UNFPA on one of the factory development, that how climate financing is focusing on the gender issues. So after the report, the national report, past year national report of the COP, it has been very clear and concise information that COP Bangladesh delegation has been just only covered 5 to 6 times the gender issues, but which is very generic. There is no any specific terminologies that how they are going to trigger out or how they are going to address these gender issues, how they are going to address this gender discrimination or disparity in the whole knowledge paper. So it means that there is a like tokenism in there is no any specific terminology that how they are going to work on that, especially on their policy level, in their implementation level, and also in the evaluation process. So that is the thing that how we are gonna work on this the completely integrates our progress on the issues covered by the things. And thirdly, I would like to cover on the renewable energy. It's highly recommended from the from this COP that this 1.5 trillion has been much be covered for this energy crisis, because things are not only covered in this way, rather we can also assure that how we are going to work on that, because there are so many points has been covered that how we are going to completely trigger out with multilateral process with different embassy on renewable energy. But when is the coming out for the implementation, there is an even in a the funding crisis in the energy process. There are so many innovative idea has been covered. There is a like care SAFE has been working different kinds of multilingual things to cover in the field level, but still there is a funding crisis, and there has been, and as we know, this type of transitions and fundamental things has been covered so many budget. It's not even possible to work on this issues as well. And fourth thing about the climate financing and health issues, as I'm mostly working on the women empowerment, especially on the sexual and reproductive health and rights and the climate. If we go to, I want to share one of the stories from the climate prone areas, that as I'm mostly working on the climate prone areas, there are still differences on the climate finances in the climate prone areas. There are women who are not having any kind of facilities or even the opportunities from to cover up their any issues in the climate disaster scenes. Just going to back to August 2024, there are a very disaster climate things has been occurred, but there is no any such support has been gone through on that point. So in that case, people are not having any kind of fundamental things what we are asking for. Look, if we are not having any kind of health issues or health support from them, that it's nothing makes sense to work on how we are going to work on that. So it's like so many trigger issues has been covered. And final point is about my education. There's still needed the climate education, that how we are gonna work on especially address to climate issues in those points, because there are some contents in the books, but things are like very narrative or very descriptive. There is no any practical situation is missing there. So the how we are gonna work on that. There are so many education from the education ministry. They have also covered to asking for 1.5 trillion for their own things, but this how gonna work this 1.5 trillion in this a very long term things with a very short budgets. So there is so many questions has been asking there, that how we are gonna work and how to approach those things, especially on the user center based approach, because we are like working on the things. It's a very, I mean, traditional process. If we really want to go for the field and work on the things, we have to come up with our own nations and also taking a participatory approach to address those challenges as well. So I think these are like some of the key points I tried to cover up with the the experiences, Bangladesh national delegations teams, and the global things, especially with the COP29. So I'm going to close my things here. If any questions comes to up, I will definitely try to answer. Thank you, Bobby. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Tasnia. And I'm happy to share that at least on this very forum, there are equal or more representation from the fairer sex, from women power, so as to work with them more prudently, give them more space in times to come in whatever we, as Climate Reality, as Youth for COP, as our partner organizations are trying to do. With this, I'll try to make this conversation a bit lighter in terms of requesting Mr. Sheikh, Ms. Shah, and Ms. Akriti to share what was their experience in terms of attending the COPs, meeting people out there, and what's their viewpoint as far as reflections come through. All three, one by one, please. Anyone can start. Mr. Sheikh, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Am I audible?
Loud and clear, yeah.
Yeah. So, hello everyone. I'm Imran. I'm part of the Youth for COP program, also part of IYCN in Yogo. So, to sum up my reflections of COP, I would like just share this one conversation I had with a farmer. So, I run this company called Prakheti, and we help farmers transition to agroecology. So, as soon as I got back from COP, I was having like a phone call with the farmers I work with, and they asked me कि इससे कुछ फायदा होगा क्या हमारा. So which translates to, are we going to benefit from this, all the conversations which have been going on at COP. So which made me really look back at all the initiatives that I was really happy about. Like I was mainly tracking the Sharm el Sheikh joint work on agriculture. Also, the COP29 presidency launched this initiative called the Harmonia, which aims to bring almost 90 different initiatives in the food systems place and harmonize them. So, but again, if you read between the lines, the text documents and all the things that have been said during COP, there's barely any commitments made to these initiatives, right? So they have been launched, publicized, and celebrated, but where are the commitments? Like, how are we actually going to, implement all of the things that we have spoken about? Even during the Sharm el Sheikh joint work negotiations, it only lasted for 1 week. And it was very clear that discussions will take place at SB. So I think the negotiator from Egypt asked, can farmers actually submit something to this portal, right? And the secretariat did not have an answer to that, which is why in the draft text they also mentioned, we need more transparency and accessibility of the portal, which is supposed to, sum up all the different initiatives by countries on food and agriculture and see where are the financing needs, what are the different needs of support. So I think, as a young participant, attending the space and of course doing a lot of advocacy, learning from all of you amazing people on the ground, one core gap was, how do we take all of these things back home, back to the country, back to our states, back to the farm, so that a smallholder farmer can actually benefit from this. And if they're not, then how do we reverse the process and take their voices to COP, maybe at Belem, or taking even ahead of that, because this is a process which is going to continue. And as someone mentioned, taking the farmer conversation to different spaces like the G20 conversation, or the UNCCD, or the CBD, which was supposed to be mentioned at COP as well, but I saw very little intersection of all three COPs. So to really make a difference on the ground, I think all these new initiatives and coalitions, they must, mobilize finance for, not just in terms of the numbers that we're talking about, but also in terms of like in a more equitable and just manner. So that our communities are actually benefiting. Like even Article 6 saw great progress this time at COP. But again, the question is, like historically, how it has been: our farmers just going to not benefit from this? Are big players going to benefit from this? So it's an interesting learning for me as a youth participant to navigate the space, which is not just policy, but also, a lot about politics, and many different aspects that are happening on the sidelines, on the back end. So it was really interesting for me to learn that this is also a crucial element to consider when, we are talking to people or working on something, or planning to pitch some new, changes. So that was something new. But apart from that, it was a space to, no matter like how it was or how the processes were done, it is a space at the end of the day to talk about the work we have been doing. And I'm really glad that I got equipped for this discussions because of Youth for COP, because we had some amazing phenomenal sessions every week. So it's very important that young people, when we participate in these spaces, we are equipped with the right knowledge, with understanding how the process works, and also having no hesitation to share our experiences, because we are working on the fields, we are working on different problems on the ground, like gender, sanitation, agriculture, energy, so many different things, and people are everywhere. So we need to collaborate more, with the overall CSOs, and everyone needs to collaborate and have a strong stance. Because when you see all these big agri-tech companies or big fossil fuel lobbyists coming to COP on party badges, then we also need to have a very strong stance as we move forward, as we go to Belem. We also need to have a very strong fight, voice to fight, counter uh, all the conversations and demands that we are making. So all these demands are not just developed countries demands, but these are demands which are rightfully needed for our planet moving ahead, right? So we need to keep advocating for this, and that's something that I will be looking forward to going into next COPs. And so I have more clarity to how to navigate the spaces and what more we can do next time, or and most importantly, in the time frame between this COP and next COP, what do we actually do? How do we create more awareness? And how do we engage more youth? Because there's so many young people in India, even people that we personally know, that are so experienced with work on the ground, and actually tackling the climate question, and really working on mobilizing finances or enabling farmers to transition. How do we get them in the conversation? How do we get these anecdotes in the conversation? And how do we actually show that even India as a country, not just a leader, but also the young people are taking the lead and representing our voices globally? So I think that's something I will be looking forward to. And even with IYCN and the Youth for COP program evolving into next year, this is something I will try to integrate and do more awareness and get more people on board, so that our voices are even stronger in Belem, and every other conversation like SB, CCD, whatever is happening. We need more representation, we need more intersectionality, and we need to support our farmers in the process. So
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sheikh. Indeed, the very conceptualization of Youth for COP was for this very purpose, and we are very thankful to IYCN who who became a flag bearer in terms of taking the initiative forward. In chemistry, there is a concept of active catalyst who bring all different elements together. Jasmine, you being one of them, representing IYCN, representing Youth for COP, representing many CSOs in terms of having a meaningful discussion and, as Sheikh said, a rightful futuristic approach as to what needs to be done. What are your learnings from COP? Over to you, Jasmine.
Thank you, Bhaveshji, and it's a pleasure to be here and be part of this conversation. So I think a lot of my co-panelists have already mentioned the disappointment that they had with the finance goals. And honestly, when I was following the negotiations on the very third day, I could tell that we are not going to achieve something good out is going to come out of it, because it was highly predictable that if China or India is speaking on the table, the opposite will be spoken by US, Canada, or Norway. So you could just there was a complete divergence in the room between the LDCs, developing countries on one side, and the developed nations on the other side, which we end up calling the global north and the global south. And before even coming to the COP. I've been working with a lot of VCs and climate tech startups, and there was no hope that we should be dependent on the global north when it comes down to implementing the solutions. So what are the alternatives? That is what we keep speaking about, because okay, it's fine that we are disappointed with the goal, and maybe we should keep trying and keep arguing for things to be in our favor, but let's also be more realistic and pragmatic and talk about what is to be done today, tomorrow, or maybe in the next few weeks. So there are certain alternatives that have been spoken about, and I'd like to give out those ideas here and maybe more discussions around them. A few of them are about since this is a failure of consensus-based multilateralism, and there are talks that maybe we should move towards plurilateralism, because there are more like-minded countries which would like to move forward with the solution. So why are we holding them back and not allowing them to move forward? Maybe that could be not part of the COP itself, but outside the COP, those countries can move together towards a solution that they believe can be achieved. Secondly, there are a few developed countries which would like to be on board, and they are saying that they would like to pair with a certain developing country. Like for example, Norway can pair with Nigeria and help Nigeria with various solutions. So those kinds of bilateral pairing is done on a issue-based problem. So these are some alternatives which are going around and being talked around in the world, and also being pushed by a lot of civil societies. And a very important thing that I think, since these are some solutions, and when we come back to India and talk about what can India do in this. So today at India, we have a very dynamic climate tech ecosystem. It is being funded by VCs, and there are a lot of incubators and accelerators across in India which are helping these startups to scale. They're providing mentoring, they're providing support. So I think the first thing and the most important thing that currently the youth can do is to be part of these innovations, and also bring out more innovations and then look for funding for those innovations, because there is a lot of private finance which can help those innovations to scale. So instead of looking outside for finance, I think there's a lot of finance itself in India, the private finance, which is putting money in these solutions. If we just talk about certain solutions today, we have many solutions varying from energy sector and solar. We have ones in the water sector. We have a range of solutions in alternative materials and circular economy which are being funded. I think yesterday there was news that the recycling industry, the pet water recycling industry, has doubled its investment in the last few years. So why are we still being dependent on the outsiders when our own private industry is ready to fund solutions, and those climatic startups are coming up and mushrooming in India? And once we are able to come to a certain scale where our startups are our startups are good enough to be taken outside the country, because today we have incubators which are saying that we want to take Indian startups to North America, we want to take them to the global south. So there the Indian innovators can be the leaders in the south-south cooperation, and we can take our climate tech solutions to these countries in the global south. We don't and at the end of the day, I believe in order to resolve the crisis, only and only a technological solution which basically makes commercial sense is going to lead the way. because A, this is going to provide employment, B, it is going to be self-sustainable. And so, since it will make more economic sense, more and more money it will attract itself. You don't have to go out and ask for money because there is economic sense to it. That happened with the solar industry. If you look at the past, we started out saying that, we need to put a lot of, we need to give a lot of subsidies to the solar, but today solar is making more sense because it's cheaper, it's getting cheaper and cheaper, and it's being competitive with the coal currently. So that's one thing, that's one solution I would say, to kind of fund more climate tech startups and then take them to the global south and also to the global north, because we have really good solutions which can also help the global north. Second, I would say, is in order for any industry to pick up or any business to pick up, the first thing that is needed is behavior change. So, only and only if we create the demand as consumers, we change our own behavior that, okay, no, I'll not buy plastic, I'll buy a bamboo alternative, or maybe I'll just buy recycled paper instead of virgin paper. So as a consumer, if you're changing your behavior, you're being more conscious about your choices, you're creating demand of these solutions, you're building the market, and you are allowing these startups to scale. So that is second, I would say, is as the youth of this country, what we can do is we can focus more on behavior change, we can focus on education and more conscious choices in helping these businesses scale. And lastly, I would say, as all the organizations which are part of this discussions, be it IYCN, CANSA, or Climate Reality, we should focus more on how we can, create an ecosystem around green jobs, because there are a lot of people out there today. Employment is an issue in all the developing countries, but we know that the green sector is also a very lucrative sector when it comes to, jobs, be it the solar industry or be it these startups which are mushrooming. So, but there is a huge gap between the skill which is needed by these startups and by the people in the industry, and what is the demand of the sector. So we need a lot more ESG professionals. We need a lot more people who are, adept, who have the knowledge about LCA, or who, know about how the solar manufacturing is done. So we should promote that culture, promote that kind of education, more deep tech, more hardcore engineering about these technological solutions, rather than just basic awareness about what climate is. So that is how we will build an ecosystem in the coming future, where these people with the knowledge of this deep tech can become innovators and come up with new solutions. Lastly, I think Nakul Sharma very nicely mentioned about subnational solutions, and I would like to add on that. Since I've been working with a lot of municipal corporations across the country, what I understand is that even though we have technological solutions today, the districts, the people who are heading these municipal corporations are not aware about them, or if they're aware about them, they don't know what to compare it with. They don't know if there are two water efficiency solutions out there in the market, which one is better for them or which one is making more economic sense. How do they get that knowledge? So maybe let's also work with local governments and try bridge that gap between what solutions exist out there in the market and which they can adopt, because it's very difficult for them to understand which are the right ones. So that's all. With these thoughts, I'll leave you at it, and maybe we can take the conversation forward from there. Thank you.
Indeed. In fact, need of the hour is looking to those local solutions, what can be done, and I'm happy to share that many among us, the panelists present out here, are working with the last man standing on those very aspects of tree plantation drives, on Sapat Sampada kind of initiatives, and try to bring in some meaningful impacts out there. With this, I move to a very important stakeholder. Now, I won't be speaking of a global north or a global south, a geographic north or geographic south, if only Ms. Aurora suggests so. Nana, you have been representing one among the most youngest population on this planet. Africa is even more or equally prone to so-called climate injustice, so-called climate migration, so-called historic problems that have been there. How are you working with different stakeholders in terms of mitigating the same? And what's your trajectory as far as COP29 is concerned?
Thank you very much, Bhavesh, and I hope you can all hear me clearly. So I'm starting from drawing lessons from COP29 and how it has been for the African young people. First of all, African Climate Reality Project presented findings from climate finance assessments from South Africa and Ghana, which were presented at COP, where we shared how climate finance is very, very crucial to the development or building resilience of local communities in Africa. And then if, sadly for us, how we're all disappointed by the outcome of climate finance at COP, it makes it, it actually tells us how local areas and communities are going to be more vulnerable because due to lack of finance, if you're not able to, adapt to, climate crisis and also build resilience, it may lead to bigger problems. So as Africans, yes, or global South, there has been some level of deep disappointment, if I can say that. But yes, as young people, what do we do, or what are we doing? Or as Bhavesh asked, what is our trajectory, or going forward? I can share sentiments with other speakers when you're talking about youth development, young people building their capacity and all of that. Yeah, it is very, very important, because if you're always talking about building movements or young people taking action, and here the case is the case where their capacities are not built to be able to take those actions. The question is, what are we doing? All right. So in as much as we are, demanding, or we are asking young people to take up spaces, to take up roles, we also have to be very crucial about it, or very intentional about it, that every young person we're grooming, or we're helping to take up to take up leadership roles, has been able to build his capacity, or we help these young people to build their capacities very well, and which is what the African Climate Reality Project West Africa Hub is actually focused on, building the capacity of our climate reality leaders, especially the young ones, and other civil society organizations, to be able to bridge the gap in terms of working together with the respective agencies in the country at the local level and also at the international level, because we can all attest to the fact that we cannot do it all alone. And as I think that was Aurora mentioned about the role of the nationally determined contributions, which are the NDCs. And in the context of Africa, we also have the nationally adaptation plans. And so all of these, all of these policies, if I can say, are what our countries use to be able to fight the climate crisis, right? And as young people, we need to find ways to work together with our various agencies to ensure that our demands are taken into consideration, or our demands are accepted, because we are the most affected people whenever there are long-term policies or decisions are taking place on our behalf. And the down part of it, or if I can say, is that most often when these policies come out, it is always a market-centered approach and not a people-centered approach. So what on the way forward, what we are also pushing hard for is that every adaptation plan or every nationally determined contribution policy in Africa should be a people-centered approach. For example, in the case of Ghana, when on the path of just transition, and we were talking about EVs, right? You come to Africa, majority of the population cannot afford to buy an electric vehicle, all right? And even public transport is a problem in the first place. And here is the case where, according to, a just transition approach, we as a country or our government is pushing forward to electric vehicles, right? It is, I mean, it is amazing. But the problem is this a people-centered approach? All right. So instead of, let's say, for example, getting every household should have, let's say, at least 2 electric vehicles that they use for their personal rounds and transport. Why don't we rather invest in our train system or our busing system that will be backed by EVs, for example? So these are the things that we are calling out for as African youth and also as climate reality leaders in Africa, and that we want this to be, just and and equitable, that
Sure.
no one is left behind, because we can't talk about just transition and my grandmother in the local community is also affected, is always affected, and nothing is done about it. And we always focus on the cities and not, the smaller rural areas that we have. And so moving forward, Tasnia also spoke about, young people not always doing groundwork at the grassroots level, but also being part of policy and decision-making processes. These are like very, very vital components that we actually should do. So for the case of West Africa, and particularly in the case of Ghana, we've been able to, equip our young people and our climate reality leaders to understand the ins and outs of our climate policies in the country. So for example, Ghana climate change policy or the nationally determined contributions, and for them to be able to make their demands, come up with a position paper and submit to the respective agencies involved. That is the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology, and also the Environmental Protection Agency. So these are some of the capacity building trainings that we give to our young people, and then we expect them to also take up roles at the higher level, so that no one is left behind, and every decision or everyone is involved at every process. And lastly, we also do not we also believe that you don't have to be an expert for you to be able to understand issues of climate financing, because of its technicalities, right? So here again, we are also here to, we also groom our young people to understand climate financing from the concept of storytelling, you understand, and then how they can make a difference from, starting from the local communities to the higher level. And with that, in as much as, expectations have not been met at COP29,
Yeah.
we are really working closely with our respective agencies and also our young people to ensure that no one is left behind, as I said earlier. And
Sure.
for that, we are coming up with the youth NDCs document in Ghana, which is going to become a national document. So this actually shows how young people are carried along or have to be carried along at every point. It shouldn't be always at the last level when it's at the point of implementation that there's going to be a consultation for, young people to give their feedback on what the policy is looking like. It's not always supposed to be like that, right? It should always or most often be a bottom-up approach where at each level there is a young representative that is actually the voice of young people, and also making rights demands as far as young people are concerned. And in the space of what we are doing, looking at how we have severe climate crisis, how we demand for climate financing on our continent. Well, as young people, our vital tool is social media, and what we are actually good at, it's movement building, right? So we come together and we hold campaigns towards the respective agencies involved. Okay, so we actually demand for grant financing, and also the involvement of young people at every level to ensure that there's a just transition and then no one is left behind. So I
Oh,
think I'm
thanks.
going to pause here and, pass it on to Bhavesh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nana. And in fact, share what your learnings and the way you are working with the youth, whatever feasible and possible, we'll try to collaborate and see how these countries and people can work together with each other more and more. With this, I very quickly move to Ms. Adishan Shah, who has been having a microscopic view on the credit portfolio, the very point that's on the green flag, I would say. So, Deshan, very quickly, over to you.
Thank you so much, Bhavesh ji, and to all the speakers, fantastic insights. I'll try to keep it extremely short in the consideration of time. And as Harjit ji mentioned, that there are lots of geopolitical aspects to the COP29 discussion. And in that light, there is lots of climate finance that needs to be driven to this sector. Well, the government of India, it's highlighted 14 different areas from where we can generate carbon credits as a way of scaling decarbonization solutions. And as our colleague mentioned, that we need to empower startups and we need to empower solutions that are able to generate carbon credits, right? And as our colleague Imran also mentioned, that how can we drive climate finance to the grassroots of the level? For example, Ghana is doing a fantastic job in terms of generating carbon credits with a bilateral agreement with Sweden in terms of generating carbon credits from rice cultivation. Well, on the first day of COP, we had a great solution from the supervisory bodies where they highlighted on the new rules. But however, the question is that are the new rules really able to monitor? So my first takeaway would be that we need extremely robust rules that are able to monitor this kind of a framework to generate high quality carbon credits. Otherwise, it is just it could be a cowboy credit rather than a carbon credit market, as it is quite highlighted by a lot of media. Again, there is a lot of transparency shortfall in this framework, wherein carbon credit deals, they are a significant delay in oversighting the emissions trading. So there needs to be a robust transparency framework. Again, there's a lot of shortfall in the CDM development, wherein the CDM under the Kyoto Protocol, are they able to translate into credits issued under this framework? So the supervisory body has been working under the 6.4 mechanisms where they're strengthening the rules on the carbon credits framework. And India, as a first mover in this space, I think the Carbon Markets Association of India has been doing a great job in advising the government in terms of how to build robust framework. And I feel that carbon credits, they would be a great way to scale decarbonization solutions. And from a youth perspective, I feel that at COP, youth are not allowed to address a lot of technical topics. So, well, I would encourage a lot of youth to build capacity around how we can promote engineering-based solutions and decarbonization. And I'm happy to share that as youth, as an international relations coordinator of UNAI, we formed the Global Young Engineers to promote engineering-based policymaking by bringing 11 different engineering organizations together to form this collective and promote engineering-based solutions on COP. So to sum it up in a nutshell, well, we need more robust monitoring frameworks for carbon credit generation. Secondly, we need a lot of engineering-based policy making. And as our colleague highlighted, that a lot of the city councils and local municipal corporations are not aware about it. So they need to be made more aware about how these solutions can help generate an additional income through carbon credits. And thirdly, how this climate finance can flow to the grassroots level and benefit the farmer at the very bottom of the level. So I'll keep it very short. Thank you so much, Bhavesh.
Thank you, Mr. Deshan. In fact, do share your learnings as well as the way you people are working at the organization in terms of sharing with the wider audience out here on future collaborations. Akriti, last but not the least, among our youngest contributor to the COP, what are your reflections from there, please? Very quickly.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. At first, hello and hi everyone. This is me, Akriti Dotil from Nepalese Youth for Climate Action. This is a youth-led network in Nepal, and I'm engaged as an advocacy and campaign coordinator there. So at first, I'm very thankful for the Bhavesh sir and the Climate Reality Project for providing me the opportunity to speak about my contributions, my engagement in the COP29. So at first, as a young people from the LDC's country, we are very disappointed by the result or outcomes in the theme of like climate finance and everything. It was like very frustrating and disappointed. So we are very disappointed to see the major emitters block negotiations on like reducing the emission. This is not a failure, but also a great threat to our future. So I would not add more about this topic because my prior speaker already mentioned about the different themes, challenges, and what can we better do. So I would like to shortly, I would like to share about my engagement, me along with our NYC engagement in the COP from the day first, like it first our to participate from our like network got chance to participate in the QA conference of 19 conference of youth where they share about the like different different stories what we are facing here. Also they got to know about the climate induced migrations, also impacts of climate change on different aspects. They got about like learn to more about this. So beside this also we got chance to participate in the dinner hosted by the like neither ambassadors where we share like we three were participate in the different themes: climate justice, climate finance, and climate actions. Moreover, we share about the experiences, stories, and expectations of the COP29 there. Similarly, we got to chance to attend the spokes meeting of the young, like it was a great space for young people to discuss various topic, also align the
Fine,
discussion on
Nafis.
negotiation.
Sure. One request, please write it down in a blog form and share with us. I understand this would be a very interesting read
Okay,
later on.
so
So
yeah,
please send it a blog on that. And you want to conclude very
okay.
quickly, yeah? Yeah.
Yeah, certainly I would love to conclude. So like you all the our speakers already mentioned, so we are not just here for working on the grassroots level, but we can act as a mediator or catalyst so that we can act also as a breeze to gap the local root problems. Like we can bring that voices in the different platform, global and international platform. So like Youth for COP session, we me along with our network attend the different session organized by like Youth for COP, and it was very like occupied. Like from that session we got very different knowledge so that we can make ourselves and we can contribute while participating. So it was all my side. So I would like to share everything like in futures from blog or everything. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Akriti. Thank you. And with this, I request all the speakers to conclude their futuristic outlook with respect to green jobs and the just concluded COP. Rituraj sir, I wish to start with you within inverted commas, one liner, future jobs, COP, and green jobs. How to move ahead on that?
Well, the transition is happening in every sector. So green jobs are the reality. I don't think that momentum can be stopped by anybody or any financial hiccups. It's underway. But regarding the COP rally, I posted on the chat that there has been a initiative by Mr. Simon Stale and the UN Secretary General for reform of the entire COP process. So the link is there, so you can see. It is coming from within. It's not that there needs to be reformation in the process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Nakul sir.
Uh, uh, Thank you, Bhaveshji, and it was a wonderful conversation hearing from all the speakers. I think it's worth noting that solar and the EVs revolution is already there in India and in other parts of South Asia. And of course, it will pick up in other parts of the world and create multiple jobs, opportunities, expertise, and a full ecosystem. But I think the more important part is that adaptation is really important for us. And we really need investment into adaptation, and along with investment, co-creations of skills, jobs, and the whole ecosystem along with it. So I also mentioned the various initiatives, presidency initiatives at the start of during my intervention earlier. I mean, these initiatives are more, some would be serious initiatives, some would be indicative initiatives. But for us, we need to really take, what
think something is wrong out there. Tasnia, green jobs and future perspectives. Over to you. Very quickly.
do on various sectors where adaptation mitigation and solar and EVs is the way to go. But in the next 1 decade, for us, it's really important that we parallelly pick up on adaptation and ecosystem services.
Thank you so much, sir. In fact, we'll remain in touch with you. Tasnia, over to you.
Yeah, I think just one statement that the promises has been taken in several COP. I mean, there are not only this COP, the other COPs. It's really very mandatory to implement right now. And about the green jobs, we need to include young people to come up with the innovative ideas that, and that time we can also ensure our climate justice in every aspect of the world. Yeah, so that's
Thank
all.
you so much for that, Chris. Mr. Rora.
Yes, thank you for the insightful discussion. And about green jobs and the future perspective, I think for me, the key is really about education, making sure that young people, but not only young people, also senior people are equipped with the right skill to perform in this new market that indeed is already there, so that everyone is equipped with the right knowledge.
Thank you so much. Sheikh, I'm pretty sure that you yourself has for sure made an entry into the green jobs, but still I want to hear from you.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of green jobs out there, and it's more about putting yourself out there and letting people know that I'm doing this, and it can be across sectors also. Like just because you're working in agriculture doesn't mean you need just agriculture skills. There are other skill sets which can benefit this sector, so you need to treat it on a sector basis and find the intersectionality. So, and you can always create your own jobs as well. Like I started my own LLP, and now we are working with 5,000 farmers. Never thought that would happen 2 years ago. So there's so many possibilities, so many grants you can avail. It's just like we are evolving at such a rapid pace, especially in India, with the startup space. And I think Jasmine was also talking about the same things, how you can build for a green future and green technologies. So there's a lot of support out there. So that would be
Thank
my.
you. Thank you. Jasmine, quickly.
Yeah, so I would just say that there are traditional ways to go about it. So you have you have certain courses, master's degree, etc., that you can get in environmental field currently in major institutions in India like TIS, Nalanda University. Apart from that, second way to go about it is that you can go and get the untraditional ways to get some courses from UNCC Learn. There are SDG Learn. There are so many platforms. There is CFI where you can learn these courses and build on the skills. And the very unconventional way is to go and start working with a civil society organization and NGO at the ground, and maybe have practical skills about what are the challenges of waste management, etc. So there are a number of ways of going about it, and there are so many organizations that you can work at, be it think tanks, corporates, or startups today. So multitude of organizations which are giving opportunity. So according to what is your area of interest,
Wrong. So a request for a blog post from your side as well. With this, I request Dishan. Dishan?
Yes, absolutely. I think most of the speakers, they've already highlighted that how we can go about green jobs. But my urge to the youth is to get your hands dirty, because without getting your hands dirty, your knowledge is only going to stay in books. And as Jasmine highlighted, that one of the most unconventional ways is to get your hands dirty. And as a waste management professional, well, we had lots of different challenges where we had like lots of mixed municipal solid waste. And then we came up with the idea of AI for municipal solid waste, right? So, when you work on ground, you have 10 different possibilities of how you can think. And as Aurora also highlighted, that we need to build capacity and we need those skills. So first of all, my advice to youth would be that we need to build capacity and get hands-on experience to develop those skills so that we have more access to green jobs. So yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Miss Nana. Miss Nana, very quickly from your side, African perspective on green jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my bandwidth is actually low now. But yeah, in terms of green skills, these are like really, really important in our area or on our continent. Already there are young people in Ghana, like the Strategic Youth Network for Development, that has a program to equip young people with green entrepreneurship skills. They take them through design thinking, planning, programming, and also branding of their businesses. And in the context of green businesses, we also need to be very careful because for the aspects of bio, for example, biofuels and etc. We have to be we have to be very crucial about these green businesses, as their end product doesn't end up also affecting the environment. So in as much as we are promoting green businesses that are very important in terms of youth development and skills, we should also support these young people with research development to ensure that the end product of their production is very vital for the development of the communities and also protects the environment in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you. Akriti, very quickly.
Okay, so listening from everyone speakers, like it will not just a career opportunity for us, also it will be help to lead all the world toward the sustainable, innovative, and equality. So our generation builds a resilient future for us. So it's very important for. Thank you.
Great. Dr. Sakshi, you have been very active catalyst in this entire drive of Youth for God. So any parting words from your side as well? Very quickly.
As everyone mentioned, that the core important thing is to build the capacity of youth to take climate action forward, either through the negotiation, either through ground work or practical field approach, or through these degrees. So whatever can be like the way, but the voices from the youth, the action from the youth is the key part, key role uh, to bring the climate changes. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks for the words of wisdom. And friends, with this, we officially close this year's edition of Youth for COP. We had some wonderful partnerships with CANSA, IYCN, Climate for Youth, Explorate, APSWDP, the Indigenous Climate Justice Forum, Gurujal, and Orlina Ventures, all coming together in terms of thinking how we can keep this momentum on with respect to bringing more and more youthful voices on the platform. I hope we made sense to it. I hope we were successful in terms of bringing some of the rightful voices, as Mr. Sheikh mentioned, whether online, whether on the ground, and at COPs as well. We look forward to your positive enthusiasm, your kind of experiences, and more about your feedback as to how we can join hands with different CSOs, different organizations in times to come, and build a more robust platform so as to take things forward. With this, thank you so very much for joining us, all the speakers, and more so to all the participants for being with us. Thank you so very much.
Thank you everyone
Thank
for
you so
joining
much,
And
taking this
everyone.
thank you,
session. It
Bhavesh ji,
back
for
to
the wonderful moderation.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
sir. Thank you so much.
thank you everyone.
Thank you. Thank
Have a
you.
great
Bye.
day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you and bye.
Bye.